The U.S. now slapping those new tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. It happened overnight.
The president putting new pressure on Beijing to finally make a deal. In his series of tweets just moments ago, he spoke out and said talks with China continue in a very congenial manner. There is absolutely no need to rush, as tariffs are now being paid to the U.S. by China of 25% on $250 billion worth of goods and products. These massive payments, the president says, go directly to the Treasury of the United States.
The trade war reaching a fever pitch as tensions rise between the United States and North Korea. We apparently just seized one of their big coal ships. Kevin Corke is live on the North Lawn of the White House, where, Kevin, it's an awful busy Friday.
You know, I know Ed loves being up there in New York with you guys, but you know you miss it, Henry.
I do.
You know you miss all the action down here. In a couple of hours, guys, trade negotiators will once again be having conversations about this trade deal, which is on, then off, then on again. But one way or another, we know this, that the tariffs did take effect late last night, and that means billions again coming to the U.S. by way of China imports. But it's a very curious circumstance because the president clearly wants to have this thing worked out, but so far it simply hasn't happened. Let me share a statement from the Chinese. Late last night, they're talking about the latest round of tariffs. It says this: China deeply regrets that it will have to take necessary countermeasures. The 11th round of China-U.S. high-level economic and trade consultations is underway. It is hoped that the U.S. and Chinese side will work together to resolve existing problems through cooperation and consultation. Meanwhile, last night here at the White House, the trade rep, Lighthizer, and the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin talked to the president about the negotiations. He said this before that conversation.
We were getting very close to a deal. Then they started to renegotiate the deal. We can't have that. We can't have that. So our country can take in $120 billion a year in tariffs, paid for mostly by China, by the way, not by us.
Meanwhile, more saber rattling in the Far East as the U.S. and North Korea trade so-called regularly scheduled drills with curiously timed missile launches, as the U.S., of course, sees a freighter with coal headed to North Korea. Interesting times out east, guys, as well. As you pointed out, the president is busy on Twitter. I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll let you know if we get anything else of relevance from the talks coming up. But now, back to you.
All right. Kevin Corke, live from the North Lawn.
Thank you,
Good
Kevin.
to see you, Kevin. And, in fact, our own Pete Hegseth sat down with the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. He talked a lot about China, the stakes here, and how the U.S. believes, look, a part of the reason why the president is pushing so hard is that our economy is in a very, very strong place. China has been struggling, so the president thinks that's the best time to strike a deal. Vice President Pence, those comments with Pete will be at 7:30, just a little later this hour.
That's right. Two biggest economies, China and the United States, being number one. The president says we were close to a deal, and then they just started to renegotiate. And he said, you can't do that.
No, you can't. Well, apparently what had happened was and this is when it went off the rails last week. Apparently the United States thought that China was going to detail the laws that they would change. So we're going to write down on a piece of paper what the laws are we're going to change. And then China goes, we never agreed to that, which apparently was not true. And apparently there was a high-ranking Chinese official in the talks yesterday. When they broke down, they tried to figure it out. They called the president and said, not going to happen. And he said, OK, midnight, it goes into effect. They are going to meet again this morning. It will be interesting to see how Wall Street
he keeps saying,
continue.
He's like, we're the piggy bank for China. China is so successful because of us. And he said that they're building aircraft, they're building ships constantly. And he said, I don't blame them. He said, I'm friends with the president. He said, but it's in our best interest for me to put these tariffs on them because they're not going to take advantage of us.
Absolutely.
He blamed past administrations. He said not just President Obama either.
Big on the international stage, but let's not forget what's happening here at home. Interesting.